Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome to this meeting of the Oklahoma Aerospace Aeronautics Commission, July 10, 2024. The meeting notice is posted according to the requirements of the Open Meeting Act. The meeting will come to order. Call the roll, please.
First Congressional District Commissioner Seth Phillips. Second Congressional District Commissioner Secretary Kevin Potter.
Here.
Third Congressional District Commissioner Chairman Charles Ortega.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Commissioner Lindy Ritz.
Here.
Fifth Congressional District Commissioner Vice Chair Blake Rainey.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jerry Hunter.
Here.
We have a quorum. Our next order of business is the approval of minutes. The draft of the minutes of the May 29, 2024 Commission meeting had been sent to you, and a copy is in our meeting packet. Are there any corrections to the minute as distributed? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes as distributed. Do we have a motion?
I shall move.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. No more questions or discussions? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Chairman Ortega.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is item 4, Legislative Congressional Regulatory Update. Director Arties, you recognize, sir.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Hope everyone is doing well on this fine July day. I want to start off this meeting. It is related to legislative congressional, but I think most of you have seen that unfortunately we lost another aviation legend in our state, Senator Jim Inhofe, yesterday. Went to fly west for the last time. It's been a tough year here in 24, losing General Stafford first, now Inhofe. But he has done a ton for aviation, aerospace, and defense, as you saw in the release that we sent out yesterday, and I'm sure as you saw the outpouring of support from his many fans, staff members, individuals he's connected with over the years. As I mentioned, we've never had a more staunch supporter in aviation, aerospace, and defense than Jim Inhofe. And, you know, there's probably hours people could talk about the man, you know, his abilities to support GA. We're going up to Oshkosh here in a couple of weeks, and I know he will be missed at Oshkosh. That was one of his big fandoms. Lots of people loved to hear from Inhofe up there, the things that he was able to do for the GA community. Specifically, the EA members is limitless. The things he's done for the state of Oklahoma back home, whether it was bringing infrastructure dollars and supporting infrastructure at the airport level or the highway level or the port level, whether it was him protecting our 5 military installations and making sure that none of them closed under his watch, making sure that they expanded under his watch, that they got more missions, that the KC-46 was bedded down at Altus and at Tinker for training and MRO, for the B-21 maintenance as it comes online, bedded down at Tinker, for all the other missions that have been added to the portfolio of Tinker and protecting its current missions to make sure they stayed here in Oklahoma. Or whether it was something on a prickly issue as military training airspace. And I know, as Mr. Chairman knows, he was played a key role in helping us ensure that healthy balance between military training and our state's renewable energy industry that was growing at the time. And so I just want to conclude with just a few moments of silence here to remember Jim Inhofe. But he'll be missed. But I know that the things that he laid, the foundations that he put forth in our airport system, our highway system, our military installations, and elsewhere will be remembered for years, decades, and probably centuries to come. Let's please have a moment of silence for Senator Jim Inhofe. Thank you for that. Moving on to our congressional legislative and regulatory update. We had a historic legislative session. As you'll see on the screen in front of you, 1,210 House bills filed, 841 Senate bills filed. That is why they say the first month of legislative session is always the craziest. You're basically taking 2,000 initiatives and trying to put all that water in the bills, if we're going for an analogy on water, and moving it down to a really small nozzle of trying to get it out of committee into just several hundred bills that make it out of committee that first round. And so it's a mad dash. But this year, in large part thanks to your good graces and the abilities that you've been able to enable this agency, but also the relationships we built, the team that we have behind me. Obviously, Sandra Shelton, who is not here today, but Sandra and her abilities are to be commended. We batted 1,000 this year on policy measures. If we're going to go with the baseball analogy, we batted 1,000. Every legislative initiative that the department moved forward or initiated was enacted into law by the end of legislative session when they signed died on that last Friday in May. Absolutely tremendous in their abilities. And so I want to talk about a few of those we'll talk about the budget first, as you see on the screen. Just under $12.5 billion of total funding for the state budget. And you see some of the notable actions there by the legislature, not related to aviation aerospace, but just in general across the gamut. But I do want to say that the department was very successful, and I want to commend our legislative members, our governor, our lieutenant governor, our leaders of the executive branch for entrusting us with $72 million of total appropriations this year. That was a combination of $15 million in recurring and $57 million in one-time funds. On the recurring appropriations side, we went from $11 million to $15 million. Our UAS and AAM infrastructure investment at $2 million remained the same. So another $2 million for UAS and AAM infrastructure, and we'll talk about that in one of the latter agenda items that we have on the agenda. We increased by $3 million the pro-growth aviation infrastructure investment. So that's pro-growth where it's utilities, hangars, terminal buildings, fuel systems, taxiways, roadways into new development areas to help grow our airport system and thereby growing the aviation aerospace industry. And then new this year was a $1 million amount for aero education and workforce development to support obviously what is our greatest need in this state's second largest industry, being the getting more kids involved and preparing them for future careers in the aviation aerospace world. So that's $1 million of appropriations to match the $1 million that you all provided last year in statutorily dedicated revenues for what we hope to be $2 million moving forward for aero education in the upcoming or in the current fiscal year that we are now in. So that's $15 million of regular recurring appropriations. We followed that with the $57 million of one-time appropriations. $16 million of that one-time of that 57 is going to the engine test cell program. As we have mentioned in several commission meetings going over several of the authorizing bills that we've tried to get past the legislature, engine test cell, engine MRO is a key to our state's aerospace and aviation industry. And there's a specific project in northeast Oklahoma at the Tulsa airport that was needing some funds to bring in additional several hundred jobs for additional engine MRO to deal with some of the GE geared turbofan and LEAP 1B aircraft engines. As we have seen commercial aircraft engines get larger, the high bypass turbofans need more room. The engine test cells that were designed back in the 70s and 80s were for lower bypass indoor turbojet aircraft, and so as we have these larger engines, obviously we have to have larger structures, and so that's what this company in Tulsa with Lufthansa BizJet is trying to achieve with that $16 million. The other request that we had made as an agency is, as you'll remember from last summer, we put forth 9 specific, what we called economic development or economic enhancement projects. As we were going through last summer, we were hearing from our friends in the legislature that there may be another PrEP program, PrEP 2.0, as we called it, or as it was called. You'll remember from the first round of PrEP funds, we had received over $100 million for various projects, some of those directed to specific projects, some of those of a competitive discretionary nature. But we put forth 9 specific economic enhancement projects for state funds, projects that we believed we've been working on for many, many years, projects that we believe needed a extra jolt of state funds to get them over the hump, to be able to fully realize that airport or that project's potential for the economic enhancement across the state of Oklahoma. And the packet that's the item that's in front of your or in your packet, you'll see a memo from me. This was provided to the legislature during session. Details the 9 projects ranging from the Atoka Airport relocation to the Shawnee Southeast Development Area to Pawhuska's runway relocation, a west side development at Watonga, hangars, fuel, and a terminal building to finish up the Okemah Airport relocation, and among many others. The 9 that are there, and happy to talk about any of those if you would like. Obviously, throughout the course of our ACP revisions, and you'll see a couple of these here later in the agenda as we have design fees and project additions coming into the ACP. You'll see these projects presented to you for various approvals over the course of the next 12, 18, 36 months. But these projects, these 9 projects, are going to transform the Oklahoma airport system landscape in ways that I don't think we've ever seen before. So you've heard about how the first round of PrEP was transformational. You've heard about how the congressional designated spending or earmark process at the federal level has been transformational. And now this, we're not calling it PrEP 2.0, but this second round of legislative directed projects is going to be transformational for our airport system moving forward. Always want to keep things above board and make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. We're happy to open up the book to anybody, show our methodology, our logic, our reasoning behind why projects are selected. And as the chairman knows, I had several committee meetings in April and May that I attended to explain some of those processes as we went down that and as the budget negotiations unfolded towards the end of legislative session. But at the end of the day, that is the budget side of the House. And moving over to the policy side of the House, go through some of the policy measures that were passed, that batting 1,000 that I'd mentioned. First up, we have House Bill 3430, which was renaming the Title III. So our statutory responsibilities lie in Title III of the Oklahoma statutes. Changed that name to Aerospace, Aircraft, and Aviation Infrastructure to more reflect all the law that is within Title III. That was authored by Representative Archer and Senator Pugh. House Bill 3672 was a follow-on for our UAS and AAM bill and our Vertiport bill, defining some of the more key items for UAS to help enable this new technology be integrated safely and effectively into the existing aviation system that we have today. That was by Representative Miller and Senator John Haste. House Bill 4072 was the Aerospace Engineer Tax Credit Reform. I think you've heard us talk about how some of the challenges we've had with the interpretations of the tax credit with the Tax Commission over the last many years. This one was to fix making sure that if somebody was supposed to get 5 years of the tax credit when they joined the industry as an engineer in the aerospace world, that they got the full 5 years regardless of what company they moved to. So if they started off at Boeing and they wanted to go move to Tinker Air Force Base, that they wouldn't be forced to forfeit the remainder of their tax credit because they wanted to go from one place to the next, which is the way the Tax Commission was interpreting the previous language. So this ensures that the deal was, if you are an engineer and you're going to work in the aerospace industry, you get 5 years of the tax credit as the person, and the company that hires you gets 5 years of the tax credit from their perspective, that you're going to get 5 years, but once in your lifetime. If you leave the state for 10 years, you come back, and you've already claimed the credit, you only get it once for 5 years in your lifetime. That was authored by Representative Wallace and Representative Miller and Senator John Hast. Then moving over to Senate bills, Senate Bill 1294 established the statutory authorization to create the Aerospace Foundation for Education Industry Outreach. That was authored by Senator Paul Racino and Representative Miller. Senate Bill 1372 was the Engine Test Cell Development Grant Program that I had mentioned just a minute ago on the funding side. This was the authorizing piece, creating that program, creating that grant program that would reside within the Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics. That was authored by Senator Hast and Representative Hilbert. Senate Bill 1393 created the Long-Term Aerospace and Aeronautics Infrastructure Sustainability Revolving Fund. Yes, that's a mouthful, and I did come up with that name. But that was for appropriations designated for construction, maintenance, and other development at airports. As we've discussed, from the time a project starts in terms of its conception, its planning, to the time it closes and the project is done, sometimes can take upwards of 3, 4, 5 years. And as we know, appropriations have basically a 30-month window from the time they are appropriated. In talking with the legislature, we felt like a revolving fund for those appropriations to go into would be helpful for our long-term success and for our financial staff to have to deal with moving forward with creating POs and paying out projects. That was authored by Senator Hast and Representative Miller. And then last but not least is Senate Bill 1912. That was the companion bill to House Bill 3672 that I just mentioned. They were identical. That was the Vertiport, the UAS, the AAM bill to help kind of be that first policy initiative to move this area of integration into our existing airspace network across the state of Oklahoma. That was authored by Senator Hast and Representative Miller. And all these bills became law. And I know our team, Sandra, is really proud of the agency's accomplishments this year. I am proud of the team's work, but also of the aerospace and aviation industry's support. Their ability to entrust us with that responsibility to go recommend legislation on their behalf is something that we don't take lightly. And it's been an amazing ride this legislative session. Each session brings about its new intricacies and quirks and benefits. And this session was without question one of the most interesting and beneficial sessions that we've had. There's always something that surprises you. There's always something that you're expecting that didn't happen. And then there's always the good and the bad. And I think at the end of the day, the calculus is we left the woodpile a little higher than we found at the beginning of session, thanks to the good work of your team, the good work of our legislature, and all of our executive branch friends moving forward. You know, as you saw throughout this, whether it was Senator Racino or Senator Pugh or Representative Miller or Senator Hast or Representative Nick Archer, Pro Tem Hilbert, the chairs and vice chairs of the policy committees that our bills go through, the chairs and vice chairs of the appropriations committees that we have to report to and request funding from. We would be remiss if we didn't thank each and every one of them that had an influence, a touch, a support measure on both our policy initiatives as well as our appropriation initiatives for this year. And at the end of the day, it really does go to show that we are in a totally different world in aerospace and defense now than we were just 5 years ago. And I know Mr. Chairman knows 5 years ago we were having good successes at that point in time. So I will stand for any questions at this point, but hopefully that is a report that satisfies your questions and comments. Of course, we'll be talking about the appropriations and how we implement some of these legislative items, policy items, as these bills become law and as we start working within the framework of some of these new programs. So again, thank you all to your efforts and your support, and can't wait to see what happens next year.
Great work.
Thank you.
Amazing.
No more questions, comments? Very good, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 5, the financial report. Chris, you're recognized.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
We will start out with the typical financial report, and then we will also preview the FY25 budget this morning. Starting out with the financial summary document, as of June 30th, which was the end of fiscal year 24, the Commission had an ending cash balance of $24.5 million, encumbrances totaling about $14.6 million, leaves us with an unencumbered cash balance of $9.8 million. Outstanding reimbursements owed to the agency totaled $876,000, and the amount of airport construction projects that were granted in 24 but have not yet been executed totaled about $1 million. Leaves us with an available cash balance after encumbrances and expected income of $9.6 million. Total expenditures during FY24 were $11.8 million. That compares to $8.3 million for the previous fiscal year. And on the financial summary document, that does not include our PREP funds or our ARPA funds, those one-time funds. If you include those in it, total expenses paid during FY24 were $18.6 million, again, compared to $8.3 million the prior year, so quite a jump. On the revenue document, total statutory revenue collected for the month of May was $212,000, and June's total was $295,000. Total statutory revenue collected for FY24 was $9.2 million, compares to $9.9 million for the previous year. So we ended the year down about 7%. You can see on the previous graph there, revenue collections have been quite low the last quarter. Then on the 3-year average document there, you see the statutory revenue collected for this fiscal year finished about $2.6 million more than the 3-year average. As I've mentioned previously, I would expect that to change going into next year now that FY21 falls off, because that had still some impacts from COVID, and that was a pretty low revenue year. I will note that while revenue was down this year at $9.2 million, that's still our second largest annual revenue collection ever. Last year's, of course, was historic. So while it's lower in the grand scheme of things, still a pretty good year for revenue collections. With that, happy to answer any questions about the financial report before we look at the budget.
Any questions, comments?
All right, our FY25 budget was submitted to OMS on June 24th, and hopefully will be approved here in the next couple of weeks since the fiscal year did start on July 1. For the FY25 budget, we projected revenue of $98.6 million. Again, as Director mentioned, $72 million of that is appropriation funds. And total expenses of $161.8 million. Obviously, those two numbers do not balance. We did begin the fiscal year with $118 million in our accounts cash, most of that of which is PREP funds. So that makes up the difference there. We don't budget the PREP funds because it's already cash sitting in our account, but we do have to budget those expenses in order to pay them this fiscal year. For the expenses, $77.7 million, or 48%, is for the traditional airport construction program. $58 million, or 36%, is for the PREP projects. So combined, 84% of the budget is going towards airport infrastructure projects. We've got the $16 million for the engine test cell development program that the Director mentioned, $5.5 million for UASAAM, $2.2 million for aviation education, and $2.2 million for administrative, operating, and IT expenses. I will note that last year's budget totaled $109 million, so this year's is an increase of about $52 million. Again, that goes back to the $41 million additional revenue that we got from the legislature and budgeting for the additional PREP funds, that budget for those full balances. So that is a very high-level overview. I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have. That's our budget that we've put forward for FY25.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. On to item number 6, Aerospace Aviation Education Update. Ms. Keaty, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm always happy to be here to share the work that we have done since we last met. First off, I was asked to go to Okmulgee to speak to the Okmulgee Public School Board meeting. They have a new superintendent. I was introduced to him, and then I spoke to them about how I hoped that they would continue their work. They are one of our original Oklahoma high schools of excellence, aviation excellence, and so I just encouraged them to continue their work. Stephanie Holt-Lucas, our new education coordinator, and I did go to Wilson Public Schools down by Ardmore, and then to Holdenville to visit with them. Both of those schools will be added to our list. I thought our list was pretty solid, but we continue to have interest, and so we'll actually next week be going to visit another school as well. So The door has not been closed. I don't know if you have in your packet or not. This is kind of hot off the press, and there are some over here. But there is a list. Oh, you do? Good. You have a list of our high schools. Right now, 116. We probably will add a couple to that. So just take a look at that in your area, the schools that you're working with and know about, and that maybe you can assist as they implement their programs. Next, we did have a booth at the COSA conference, which is the Oklahoma School Administrators, at the Convention Center downtown. And then I also did a breakout session for school superintendents entitled Designing and Advancing District-Wide Aviation Programs. And so we had a good response to that. And we're able to talk to a lot of school superintendents. I know it's amazing that we haven't already talked to all of them at this point, but there still are a large number of schools wanting to know what's happening. Next, I was asked to go to Metro Tech. I look like an evangelist, and Vic would be proud. But they did have a grand opening of their facility in that it's refurbished, beautifully. New paint, new flooring, and I was glad to be able to be there to speak to them about how we obviously promote the work that they're doing, particularly in aircraft maintenance. Next, I was very excited to get a call from, this is the NATA conference, the Air Transport. I was asked to sit on the panel. You see Senator Pugh there and numerous industry experts that wanted to know more. What's happening? What are we doing about workforce, particularly as we move down to our secondary schools and even lower than that, actually? How are we building workforce? So I was glad to be there to be able to share with them the work that we are doing. We had a visit last week, actually, from Embry-Riddle, a team from Embry-Riddle, and it was very interesting. And they called and they said, could we come? We want to think about advancing our footprint, perhaps even in Oklahoma, and what might that look like? Can you tell us and share the work that you're doing? So we were happy to spend 2 full days with them at AAR, at FAA, at the 137th, at Mustang High School, at NORDAM, in Bristow. It was a whirlwind tour, and we were able to share with them the remarkable work that's going on in Oklahoma, and they're going to go back and plan and see how how might they fit in the work that they've obviously been doing for a large number of years. Also, I did receive a call from the Chickasaw Nation, and they said, look, we really would like to increase our education footprint to include aerospace in a more positive way. Could you help us develop some programs for our summer school? And so I helped them by building a team of educators who wrote some lesson plans. So every week this summer, the Chickasaw Nation Summer School in Ada, serving about 500 students. It culminated, 1 week culminated with a visit by Gigi Coleman. You've seen her picture numerous times in the past several months, but she came back. Gigi's heritage is her grandfather was a Cherokee Indian. And so she came back and was able to speak to the Chickasaw students. You see Director Ardy's there. He too is looking like an evangelist as he's speaking to the students in summer school at the Chickasaw Nation. And you see Gigi there with some of the students who were so excited to be able to meet her. So that's still going on. They're shooting rockets this week, I know, and I talked to them yesterday. They're very, very pleased, and it's great. We have 24 high schools in the Chickasaw Nation that are teaching aerospace and aviation, and I think that that's a very positive thing. Next, I'd like to share some really exciting news. This made me very happy. At the end of the teacher training in Tulsa, I asked the teachers that were there, they're just under 90, I think we had 89 teachers, to just quickly give us a little bit of data. Now, we didn't have all of them there, so this is incomplete, but in a minute I'll show you a pathway document. The students start in 9th grade with Aviation 1. They're 15-ish. as sophomores, Aviation 2. They build to Aviation 4, the capstone course. So most of our new schools still have 15 and 16-year-olds that are not eligible to finish their private pilot at this point. But if you look, we've already had 24 private pilot written certifications passed from that pathway, 8 completed private pilot certifications, 8 new pilots, 2 sport pilot certifications, 17 FAA Part 107 UAS certifications passed. The one that made me the most happy, 40 students admitted to post-secondary aerospace programs. That's remarkable. That means they're at OU, that are admitted to OU and ready to go, OSU, Southeastern, Embry-Riddle, a lot of schools, and these students really paying attention to when's the application, you know, when can we start? So that's exciting for me. And another exciting thing, 26 high school students in aviation internships, whether at an airport, and I listed some there, or whether at industry. It's great to have them working on behalf of our industry and being so excited about what they're doing. So that's a few of the things that we've been working on in the past, or this summer, or the past few weeks. And there's the pathway I mentioned. It shows you that there are 2 pathways in the AOPA curriculum. The pilot pathway is that top line, and it's general aviation pilot pathway. The bottom is the unmanned aircraft systems pathway. The curriculum, if you're a curriculum person, in grade 9 and 10 is exactly the same, whether it's the pilot or the UAS pathway, in that it's foundational. It's weather, it's safety, it's learning the basics. And then as they move to grade 11, the drone pathway, the UAS branches off, the pilot pathway continues. Really, grade 10 and 11 is primarily ground school for that pilot pathway. And so those students are getting a real good, solid foundation as they move forward. Be happy to answer any questions about the work that we're doing with aerospace education. We're very excited about the funding and the moving forward and the growth.
So AOPA came out and ran the training for the teachers?
Yes, they did. Mhm.
It was in Tulsa, did you say?
Yes, and I think that's the next, is that the next thing on the agenda? Yes.
Wonderful.
We had those 90 teachers, 89 teachers in Tulsa, at OSU Tulsa. And we had a banquet the evening of June 3rd, actually in the concourse of Tulsa International Airport. So the passengers were, and their luggage were going around the big venue, the banquet. And at first, you know, we talked about it first and we think this is either going to tank or this is going to be really cool. It turned out to be really cool. It was an immersive experience in aerospace and aviation, and the teachers thought it was great. Todd Willinger from Redbird Simulations was our guest speaker. We also had a speaker from AOPA, and one of our pathway graduates who is already has his commercial certification, one of our very first pathway graduates who had just got his commercial pilot, also spoke with AOPA in what the pathway had meant to his life and his journey. So that was very exciting. And then we finished June 4, 5, and 6 at OSU Tulsa. As each grade level, you saw that pathway just a second ago. So the grade 10 teachers were trained, the grade 11 teachers trained, and so on. So every summer, they go to the training for the next school year so that they're ready to go and armed to do the work that's necessary.
Paula, what kind of funding now do we have to send teachers?
Well, this year we had funding that allowed us to pay the lodging,
Okay.
the registration costs. I do have a call with AOPA week after next to talk to them about what next summer will look like and any increases in registration costs and those kinds of things. And we were also able to pay most of the meals for them as well, which means, I think it's remarkable that we already have a few teachers who have been in the pathway long enough that they don't need to even go to training. 3 of them call me, can we still come? I think that's really a positive sign that they want to be with that group of people that are working together to build workforce in our schools. So yes, and with the new funding that we now have received, that Director and Mr. Wadsworth spoke about, I feel like we'll continue to be able to work to promote that summer programming, because it's imperative. When I first was in Ada City Schools, we actually had, AOP offered one training, and it was in Frederick, Maryland at headquarters. We were actually forced to come up with funds to send our teachers to Frederick. So the fact that they come to Oklahoma and are still willing to come to Oklahoma and build a program, I tell the director all the time, we're their number one customer. You know, we have more people needing training every summer than any other state. So we did announce at the banquet, and one of the fun things was they took us back through security to Gate 1 at the airport so that we could all say we're number one in the nation. So we took a photo there at the gate, and people were wondering what was going on, but they wondered that the whole evening, I think. But it was fun, and it was a positive experience for our teachers. Obviously, I stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions on item 6 or 7? Comments?
How many high schools are there in the state? 500 something?
537, I believe.
Okay, well, that's good penetration. They've really done a good job.
Well, thank you.
And you dragged all 3 Edmond high schools in. I'm
I did.
impressed.
I did.
It's had to be a challenge.
Yeah, you know, the larger the school district, the more layers you have to work through to get things implemented. You know, it's amazing, some of these smaller ones, I can still go to them next week and they're able to pull it off for August. That's not true at our larger districts, obviously, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Good job.
Next is item number 8, 5-year airport construction program. Mr. Nick, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'll start off with the good news. I don't have 60-plus slides to go over today like I have the past couple of meetings, so hopefully I'll keep mine short and sweet today. This first item is the modifications to the airport construction program that Grayson alluded to earlier. The first project is we're seeking to add a runway rehabilitation to a crack seal and seal coat for Purcell Municipal Airport at a 95.5 state grant. Total cost anticipated to be $350,000. That'll be partnering with an FAA lighting project so that we can just close that runway once and get them up to full speed and have everything ready to go as they finish up both projects. The second project would be at South Grand Lake Regional Airport for terminal building and a hangar development that we talked about a little bit earlier. That'll be a $5.5 million project, and that'll be funded at 100% from this year's appropriation. And at Stroud Municipal Airport, we are seeking to modify that project. We had already had in the ACP to extend their runway, and now with the appropriation, we're looking to get their runway extension out to a full 4,000 feet, widen the runway, and do a lighting project to include PAPIs as well. That'll be an additional $3 million to the existing airport construction program project as it stood currently, and the additional funds, that $3 million, will be at the 100% level from the appropriation. Happy to answer any questions on any of these. Staff recommends approval for adding these to the ACP.
Any questions? Any comments? Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve in a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter?
Aye.
Chairman Ortega?
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz?
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey?
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam?
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item is item number 9, Airport Construction Grant Program Consent Docket.
For this item, this are seeking grant approvals for 3 different projects, the first being at Chattanooga Sky Harbor Airport. This is just over a $1 million total project, a 95.5 state grant with department funds, just $951,064. This will reconstruct the western half of their apron out there, as well as the connector taxiway. And this is one of those instances where we did go out to bid twice just to try to get the best funding available that we could. But as we can see here, the prices for concrete and asphalt are going up across the state. So while we did get the best cost that we have, it is a little bit higher than what we've seen at some other projects here recently. But just wanted to mention we did our due diligence to make sure that we could get the absolute lowest price that we could through the public bidding system. The public bidding process. And so that'd be the first project at Chattanooga. We do have KSA, the engineer representing Chattanooga here, so D'Angelo.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is D'Angelo Reyes. I'm a Senior Project Manager with KSA Engineers out of our Norman, Oklahoma office. Representatives from Chattanooga were not able to make it here tonight or today, but on their behalf, the mayor, the commissioners, and the people of Chattanooga, we appreciate your help in getting their apron and taxiway improved. They're very appreciative and looking very forward to getting the project underway and completed so they can keep their flights going. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there was no FAA matching funds possible for this.
Not for this one, no. The second project, we are seeking a grant approval at Elk City Regional Business Airport. This is to construct additional taxi lanes following the hangar development that's occurring out there. This is to open up additional space for hangar development out to the north there, as you can see from those two pictures. The total project cost on this one is just a little over $1.1 million. And $305,722 of FAA funds will be utilized for this, and then the state grant funds of $754,040 on our share, and then the sponsor matching funds at just shy of $56,000 for this project. The engineer for Elk City Regional Business Airport is also here in Lochner. Paul, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning. I'm Paul Priegel. I'm a project manager with Lochner, and here on behalf of Elk City, just would like to continue to express our gratitude for the investment that is going on in Elk City, the new terminal and hangar and now taxi lane. It's going to continue to open doors for that community, and they are very much appreciative, and we thank you for your support.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, on the grant side of the house, at Stillwater Regional Airport, we're seeking grant approval for their new terminal building. Our portion of that is $1 million through our terminal building project, but as you can see, that's an $18.8 million total project cost. $13.3 million of FAA funds will be utilized for that, and the local sponsor there, the City of Stillwater, at $4.5 million. As we keep on, as you can see in this slide here, we've got the old terminal here. And as we continue to kind of flow through some of these, you can see the historical information and then going right into the exterior or the front, and some additional kind of overall pictures of what that the rendering of what that will look like. And so really opening up and modernizing what they have. And we also have the airport director, Kelly Reed, here. If you would, Mr. Chairman, if I could bring her up.
Right ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I just wanted to express the gratitude from Stillwater Regional Airport and City of Stillwater Mayor and City Manager's Office on the support of our important terminal project. The photo you saw, the original photo there in the slides, was our 1952 terminal that we've been operating commercial service out of for almost 8 years. Our eight-year anniversary is next month. We're very excited about this new terminal facility that will offer 2 gates as opposed to the one that we have now. In our existing terminal, we have standing room only when we have a full flight with our 65-seat regional aircraft. So we are very excited to have facilities to better serve our existing needs and make room for future growth and development. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
Staff recommends approval for all 3 of these projects, but I also stand for any questions.
Any questions,
Could be the
comments?
same location as existing terminal.
I believe that we are just adjacent to that. Kelly, you'd have a better idea. Sorry. didn't
Okay,
see
I see it now. I see
Okay,
it, yeah.
gotcha. Easy.
Okay.
But, sorry about that, Commissioner Rainey. But any other questions, and I'll leave Kelly up here so that I don't have to make her walk back again, just in case.
Any further questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Chairman Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye. Motion passes. On to item number 10, Airport Construction Grant Program Change Orders. Michelle, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For your consideration, we have a change order at Elk City Regional Business. The project is currently under construction for utility work for the new terminal building and hangar. The change order was necessary since the proposed water lines had to be extended further than previously known to tie into the existing water line. They also had to replace a manhole, fire hydrant had to be extended, and an extra service and meter was needed. The additional cost will be $28,791, will be funded $27,351 of state grant funds and $1,440 of sponsor matching funds. I will stand for any questions. Staff recommends approval for this change order.
Any questions?
Seems routine.
Yeah.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter?
Aye.
Chairman Ortega?
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz?
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey?
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam?
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter?
Aye.
Motion passes. Go right ahead.
This is going to be another change order. This is for Phase 1 of the parallel taxiway realignment at Seminole Municipal Airport. This change was necessary to stabilize the subsoil and prevent soil from mixing with the unsuitable material. So this is an estimated additional cost of $159,000 and will be funded with $143,100 of federal grant funds, $7,950 of state grant funds, and $7,950 of sponsor matching funds. Now, this is actually approved through the Director's Authority, but we're just bringing it to you for information, making you aware of the change.
Any questions, comments?
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none? Thank you, Michelle, appreciate it. Item number 11, Airport Project Consultant Approval Consent Docket. That should have said it all right there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both are for contracts. The first one seeking approval to enter into a contract as part of departments, us acting as agent for the role of City of Stroud. This is for the runway extension project that we modified just a little bit ago so that we can include the full runway extension, widening, rehabilitation, and electrical improvements at the airport. This contract is for the design of all of those items. Total project cost for the design is $647,000. FAA funds will be utilized for $415,900 of that, and $231,100 of state funds will be at 100% via the appropriation from this year. The second project is seeking into a similar contract for the City of Ketchum for the South Grand Lake Regional Airport. It's for their infrastructure investment for the terminal building and large box hangar. Total design cost for this project, $461,150, and this would be at 100% via the appropriation from this year. Staff recommends approval for both of these items, and I stand for any questions you have.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Received a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter?
Aye.
Chairman Ortega?
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz?
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey?
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam?
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Nick, appreciate it. Moving on to item number 12, Progressing Rural Economic Prosperity Fund Project Consent Docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would so indulge me, I forgot a couple of introductions on my initial item, but we have a couple interns with us, so I always want to recognize our interns, one of which is ours. Emily, if you wouldn't mind standing up and giving a wave. This is our intern for the summer. She is an aerospace engineering major, which is unique for us. Usually we have aviation management, but aero engineering, she stood out, and I think she's enjoying her summer, hopefully, learning lots about what we do as a department. And then we also have Skylar, who is our OU intern. Skylar, if you wouldn't mind giving a wave back there. Skylar's the OU Max Westheimer Airport intern. He's a aviation management student? Yes, sir. Okay. So both of these individuals, we're going to get them trained up and get them in the workforce as soon as possible, hopefully. So this is the future right here. Good things happening. So wanted to recognize them, and I would encourage you all to go up and chat with them and encourage them to go and chat with these folks. They do sit up here, but they aren't scary, I promise. and share some of the stories of how you all got into aviation, because I know as a young person once in school at OU, it was always good to hear those stories of how people got involved in their careers. Gave me ideas, thoughts, dreams for what I might want to do in the future. So that being said, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that indulgement there.
Thank you and welcome to both of you.
Back to business at hand, prep, item 12. We have several prep projects here as part of our consent docket. A couple of them are amendments and change orders, but because they're under the prep banner, we wanted to do them separate from the change orders that Michelle was presenting to you. So the first one is for the Ardmore Air Park, additional cost of design for gas line, sidewalk, curb, and gutter for the cargo area that you're seeing down there is $65,900, funded entirely by prep funds. Item B, next up, is at the Woodward Airport to go along with their runway extension, which is being designed currently. We want to obviously have instrument approaches off into that runway, and so one of the amendments that we are going to have to do is do an aerial obstruction survey to make sure that the new approaches can be aligned appropriately to the new runway end there at 17, which is to be extended 500 foot to the north. That's a total cost of $130,000, funded entirely by prep funds. Next 4 projects we have are at Woodward America, and that is for 4 of the first major projects as part of their overall $20 million prep program allotment to make them a better facility and more aviation business ready. I'm going to say all 4 projects, and that's just to start. So item C, or I'll just say all 4 projects. We have the terminal building and parking lot, the large box hangar and associated parking improvements, the taxi lane and access road, and then of course utilities. But I want to go through all 4 of these individually to talk about the costs, and then I believe we have Sean from City here who might want to come up and make some comments at the end of all 4 of these. But item C is for the terminal building, about $3.7 million for terminal building and parking lot. This is almost a 5,000 square foot terminal building to replace their aged and outdated terminal facility. Next project, item D, is a large box hangar and associated parking lot there for $4.3 million, just a little bit over that, for a 15,000 square foot hangar that can accommodate anything from large aircraft storage to an MRO activity to a flight school, you name it. It will have a door height that can accommodate, I think, up to Embraer 145 CRJ 200s and maybe a little bit taller than that. Item E we have is the new taxi lane, which is being developed to that hangar. And this is to open up some other growth areas. This is about a 40-acre parcel that has been previously untapped in terms of aviation business development. So between this item being the taxi lane that's starting things back there along with the access road, and item E, I'll read off the price there. That's $2.45 million, just under $2.45 million total project cost. And then on to item F is the utilities that is also going into that area to serve the terminal building, the hangar, and then that 40-acre area to hopefully spur some aviation business development. So I want to bring the city forward and say a few remarks on how this is changing the landscape in Northwest Oklahoma.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This has been a tremendous project for the city of Woodward. As we're in Northwest Oklahoma, we consider ourselves a hub city, one of our largest communities. The airport is really a feature part of what we're going to look at in drawing in industry, drawing in business, having operations. Couldn't do it without the prep funding project, and so we just appreciate the opportunity that you've given us to expand our airport and benefit our community in Northwest Oklahoma as a whole. So again, thank you.
And as I mentioned earlier, none of these prep projects would be possible without our legislators, and a thanks to them for their vision and support of their allotment for the overall $250 million that's going into the aerospace and defense industry across the state of Oklahoma as part of the ARPA and the PrEP program that was passed in the fall of '22. And as we're seeing here, we're transforming Northwest Oklahoma, as you heard the city manager reference, into another aviation hub for development for the future to come. So staff recommends approval for this consent docket, and I'll stand for any questions or comments you might have.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, having received a motion in a second, please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Chairman Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 13. Yes, the PrEP fund update. Thank
So
you.
this will be the other PrEP funds we didn't just approve. All the other projects give you a little update of what's going on there. We have many hangars that are under construction throughout the airport system in the state of Oklahoma as part of the $14 million of competitive hangar funds. I would suspect that your calendars are going to be dotted with both groundbreakings for the new hangars as well as ribbon cuttings for the celebrations of the completed hangars this fall as we turn into some good weather seasons. So please be on the lookout from that from Sandra and Caitlin. Had the opportunity to have kind of we'll call it a middle celebration for the GTIP situation, the Global Transportation Industrial Park at the Ardmore facility. That was it wasn't a groundbreaking because we've already broken ground there, but it wasn't a ribbon cutting because it's not done yet. It was more of a middle opportunity to talk about the progress and the success and to continuing to generate support there at the air cargo facility. Had the opportunity to hear Governor Anatubby speak along with other state and local elected leaders there at the Ardmore Municipal Airport. Amazing stuff happening down at Ardmore, and I think when it's all said and done, we'll really see a truly reformed multimodal hub there for southern Oklahoma. Obviously, we just approved several projects for Woodward, but as I'd mentioned, there's still design going on for the other projects, the runway extension, the apron reconstruction, and trying to get those going. Tulsa International, obviously, we approved that at our last meeting, and not to take any thunder from Caitlin when she's talking about events, but we got a groundbreaking coming up for the air traffic control tower at Tulsa here in a month or so. And then, of course, the MRO hangar at Will Rogers, as you guys are departing your Will Rogers commercial flight here in the next couple of weeks, you'll start to see a lot of equipment happening over there as you're going down Meridian. Look over to the right, and you'll see a lot of amazing things happening there with that MRO hangar. So that stands my rest of the PrEP discussion, my information report, but I'll definitely answer any questions that you all might have.
Any comments, questions? Very good. Proceed with item number 14.
Item number 14, so this is for on-demand services for statewide UAS AAM integration. Entering into an agreement with MITRE Corporation for on-demand and support services up to $250,000 to help us with implementing the Advanced Mobility Strategic Plan, which you all know is currently wrapping up. We're going to look to have a grand announcement of that here probably in August at some point. But helping us implement that, helping us implement the funds that the legislature has dedicated to us for UAS and AAM. This is an area that we're not usually subject matter experts in. We have Doug Wood, who's an extremely expertise on UAS and AAM, but when it comes to setting up radars and detection systems and picking this brand over that brand, we need some independent counsel, and that is what this item is going to do. MITRE Corporation, I'm sure some of you have heard about MIT Lincoln Labs or some of the other federal research centers out there. That's what MITRE is. They're a federal research center that has no attachments to any contractors or private service providers, and that way they can give us a truly impartial, independent assistance as we look forward to working on the RFP that is on the street, or working on the RFP that we're doing interviews for, to select our first company for radar and UAS infrastructure investment across the state. So with that being said, I'll stand for any questions, but staff recommends approval.
You mentioned radar. Normally, the FAA takes care of all radars within the United States. Is this unique to the unmanned systems then?
Yes, so the radar, the ASR, the airport surveillance radar that you're talking about, that's big radar. That's looking for, hundreds of miles or 75-mile radiuses. And as FAA will tell you, they're not in the business of putting in any more radars. And so as states, as tribal nations, as communities have wanted to set up test sites and other activities to help integrate these UAS and AAM activities, be seen as test beds, those individual organizations are putting in smaller radar systems. So we're talking, 5-mile radars, 20-mile radars, maybe 30 or 40-mile radars to help integrate this technology, looking at the lower altitude areas, but also the one we're implementing right now is going to be for Kratos out at Burns Flat. That's for up to 25,000 feet altitude as well. It's specifically to help us prove the case, because right now, as we all know as pilots, it's see and avoid. So you look outside the cockpit, you figure out where your traffic is, and you avoid that traffic as a general principle in general aviation, or any aviation for that matter. But unmanned aircraft don't have that capability. So what we do is, instead of having a chase plane have to chase the drone around and fly that and have the people in the cockpit of the chase plane be the eyes for the drone, we now implement radar systems and other detection systems around the state that is basically taking away the need for a chase plane. The radar becomes the eyes in the ears of the drone to help it do its see and avoidance requirement as it's navigating throughout the NAS.
Interesting.
So what are we committing to here?
So we are committing to on-demand consulting services to help us with picking, and once we pick, implementing the right radar and detection systems for Burns Flat as well as across the state with the funds that the legislature has given us in the appropriations process the last few years.
So we're committing up to $250,000?
Up to $250,000, correct.
As needed.
As needed, on-demand services, correct.
Any further questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Received a motion to approve in a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Chairman Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, item 15, partnership with Thunderbird Drone Festival. Director, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Thunderbird Drone Festival is something we've partnered with for many, many years. They have started out in Woodward, Oklahoma, and they're looking to grow that and bringing it to Oklahoma City to grow it. This is a opportunity for people to get together and utilize UAS with photography, cinematography, and get kids as well as adults interested in how can we use this new technology to better implement the film and cinematography arena. So of course, our team got together, Sandra, Caitlin, myself, Doug, got together and talked with Thunderbird Drone Festival about how can we help them do better as they move into Oklahoma City as they try and grow their opportunity. And so we came up with a $10,000 in-kind sponsorship to basically support their celebratory evening, which is where they issue all their awards, and we bring kids in to showcase the activities of the different cinematography elements that are a part of this festival and almost a competition using drones for photography and cinematography and other activities like that. So $10,000 for us would be our contribution to go pay for putting on this event, either by staff time or paying for vendors to get this done October 3rd through the 5th. It'll be that Friday. Of course, you all would be invited to partake in that. It'll be at the Ham Center here, just not too far away from the building we're sitting in right now. Staff recommends approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any comments or questions? None? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Very good. Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Aye.
Chairman Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Where is the Ham Center? I'm not familiar with it.
So the Ham Center is the building, you know where the Commerce Building is? So it's basically just west of the Commerce Building, between Commerce and I-235, where the new Innovation Hall and the new Innovation Building is going up. It's right there. It was built as the, I'm trying to remember who. Baker Hughes, Halliburton, yeah. So that the Halliburton Energy facility is what it used to be. Harold Hamm and Halliburton got together to build this, and then they've donated it to OSU to use as kind of their Oklahoma City Research Development Institute. So it's a nice facility. If you're going
It's off 10th, isn't it?
just south of 10th. So if you're going south on I-235, look to the east once you get past 10th Street, or if you're going north once you get past 4th Street, look to your east and you'll see it.
Will there be any flying during this thing?
Any flying?
Any drone flying?
We're discussing that still, yes. Obviously, being within Class Charlie Airspace, there's some, we can do it inside, but doing it outside might be a little more complicated, but it's part of the discussion, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item 16, emergency rules. Michelle, you're recognized.
Okay. The item before you for consideration is for adopting emergency rules related to the airport construction and the aerospace and aviation education programs to address funding and program requirement changes implemented during the 24 session. So in front of both, all of you is the chapter changes that we do have before you for recommendation. Just to kind of quickly go through it, for Title 25, Chapter 15, the airport construction program, we're just making a couple, while we're doing this, we're making a couple definition changes per the OAR's request to correct formatting. At the same time, we are, changes will add refurbishment, remodel, and expansion to, for terminal buildings less than 35 years old as an acceptable rehabilitation project to be considered under ACP projects. Under state-level participation and required matches, terminal projects are identified. We're identifying that new construction or complete reconstruction of an existing terminal building are considered eligible under this item, as well as stating that it is the department's sole discretion that a rehabilitation or expansion of a terminal building less than 35 years old may also be considered. And then we are also correcting or changing the fuel system projects. The maximum cost share will be increased from $300,000 to $500,000 per system, per fuel type. And then we've just done a few grammatical changes throughout for this chapter. So those are all the changes for the construction program. Now for the education program, you might notice there's a lot more changes in there. So we've incorporated the word aerospace throughout Chapter 25. We've also brought in the date from 60 days to 30 days for applicants to get their paperwork submitted to close it out. We've clarified that the 30-day extension be requested. Should they request a 30-day extension, it is the sole discretion of the director to approve that. For new and startup programs, we have asked that they provide a detailed outline to be considered for funding, so that way we really know what the program is about. While we've not been funding it, we are now we've now listed that we do not cover teacher or instructor salary as part of grant funds. It does count toward the applicant match, but we just don't fund it, and we want to make sure everybody sees that. Under 25-1-4, procedures for awarding funding have more clearly been spelled out. We have noted that staff will identify specific items the grant funds can be used towards. Items are expected to be purchased and used during the year awarded, and any changes to program, reach, scope, anything like that could result in the forfeiture of grant funds. And then any UAS that are purchased do need to comply with federal and state guidelines, rules. We've added 25-1-5, procedures for requesting reimbursement has been added to clearly identify it. These directions are in the grant application, but they just weren't in the rules. So we just put it in the rules so that they could be read. 25-1-6 is a new section. Requirements for receiving funding from an aerospace or for an aerospace or aviation classroom laboratory development grant have been added. So we brought that before you previously, our pilot group, but now we're actually putting this in our rules. These are specifically for secondary schools and universities offering aviation or aerospace coursework, and the grant opportunity will be made available based on department's funding and could be brought before any time throughout the year based on our funding. So we're not structuring it like our regular grant program where there's a May 31 deadline every year. The classroom lab is more flexibility for us. We've also changed the min and max on that to where they may request as low as 10,000 or as max as 100,000, just to give it, not that we're going to necessarily award that, but we're putting a cap on that so that way we don't see really high level requests. And then 25-1-7, requirements for receiving funding for an internship or apprenticeship program has been added. So this is something new. The department may, at the discretion of the commission, and based on our available funding, assist with internships or apprenticeships for qualified aerospace or aviation companies, providing a 50% of the cost of that intern, up to $10,000 per student. So I will stand for any questions or give you time to scan through that a little better. If you have, these are emergency rules. So once approved, should you choose to adopt, we'll move forward with that process. Depending upon governor's approval, they could be in 45 days. And then we will have to obviously adopt permanent.
And that's a fun process.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments?
Sounds like a lot of work went into this.
It did.
Okay, seeing no questions or comments, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Chairman Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye. Thank you, Michelle. Item 17. Caitlin Wade, you recognize review of upcoming aviation and aerospace events.
Good morning, Commissioners. So it's been a very busy summer so far, as you can see, but we have a slate of events coming up going into the fall season and later. So just to give you a brief overview of what's coming up, August 1st, as Director mentioned, Tulsa International Airport is having a groundbreaking for their control tower. August 5th, Tinker and the Primes falls that week, and they have a Women in Aeronautics reception on that, I think it's Tuesday, August 5th at 5 p.m. And then August 17th is the annual Okie Derby at Sundance. August 19th, we are planning to have a UAS AAM strategic plan announcement at the Capitol. That also falls on the Oklahoma Aviation and Aerospace Day. So once we have the plans for that finalized, you, of course, will all be invited to that. September 21st is our Girls in Aviation Day over at Atlantic Aviation at Wiley. October 4th is, it falls during the Drone Festival. We are planning to have a UAS Student Flight Day. It is still in planning, but that's Commissioner Putnam where our flying is going to come into place for that event. So that's going to fall on October 4th. A couple of save the dates. December 6th is going to be the Women in Aviation Day. April 2nd, 2025 is Aero Oklahoma. And then I have a few pictures from some of our recent events. This is D-Day. It was held at Tinker Air Force Base. Sandra attended that to commemorate D-Day. And then this is from our FAA ACE camp over at AAR. And then this is from our ODAA summer cookout, where Commissioner Rainey was very gracious in opening up his home to allow us all to come over. And thank you again, Commissioner, for your hospitality. And then this is from the EAA Chapter 1098 summer cookout. We were able to interact with many pilots, all very excited for Oshkosh, of course. and also be able to meet a Mustang AOPA student. She's getting ready to go to OU in the fall. So that was a very good conversation. And I think that is it. Here's the list. And that's time for any questions.
Any questions, comments?
Busy.
Very
Busy
busy.
schedule. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Item 18, Director Report. Director Ardis, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Covered a lot already of what we've been doing here the last month and a half since our May 28th meeting. But started off with the terminal dedication at Lawton Fort Sill. This was for their next phase, which is the public boarding bridge area. I think they're going to wrap up the complete terminal project later this year, earlier next year, which they'll have a complete grand opening for that. And of course, you'll be invited when that happens. But this was May 31st there at the beautiful new terminal boarding bridge there. Barbara McNally, the airport director, to my right, and the mayor to my left. And we had a big old pair of scissors we cut the ribbon with. So it was an amazing opportunity, and thank you for Lawton for doing such an amazing event. Item B, we several staff attended South Grand Lakes Regional Airport fundraiser called Napa Nights. They have held this going for at least 6 or 7 years now. This is the airport that we always talk about, that they don't receive a dime of local tax dollars from the city. They are purely relying upon donations and other revenue from people and sponsors and local contributors. They had some big asks going on with the new upcoming discretionary the upcoming discretionary project that's going to build a new parallel taxiway, about a $6 million project, and require about a $300,000 local match. That's a not insignificant amount of money for a community that doesn't receive any local tax dollars to contribute. And so they're able to raise a significant amount of money, and they raised more than they raised last year. So we were happy for them. We did several site visits throughout the month of June to airports. We went to the Great Beyond, the Northwest Beyond, and hit Watonga and Alva and Boise City and Beaver. Remarkably, we went to there was no wind. I thought there was something going on wrong in the Panhandle. There wasn't a breath of wind when we jumped off the airplane in Beaver, Oklahoma, for June 7th. It was actually a pretty nice trip, but had conversations with all those airports about their future plans, CIP discussions, and what they would like to see from some of the revenue potential that aviation aerospace is getting from our state legislator. On June 24th, we went to Okmulgee, Fairview, and Lawton. Had various conversations. Okmulgee, we talked about the terminal building. Fairview, they have an aviation business that wants to locate on the airport, and we were talking to them about how we could help maybe build a hangar for that aviation business, as well as some other projects that they have on their minds. And then, of course, went to Lawton as part of the terminal ribbon cutting. They wanted to meet with us and have a sit-down meeting about various funding opportunities and ways they could better partner with the department on June 24th. And so we went down there and met with the mayor, airport board chairman, airport director, talked to them about commercial service development program, talked to them about our hangar program, our terminal program, all the other funding sources we have available, aerospace and aviation education, and figure out ways we can better integrate with our friends down in southwest Oklahoma and Lawton. And then last item on the list is D, the U.S. Contract Tower Association in Washington, D.C. I had the opportunity to attend that annual meeting with several airports and members from Oklahoma. Paul Priegel, who you heard from earlier with Lochner, was in attendance, as was Lance Lampkin, the director of Max Westheimer, Dan Luttrell from Ardmore, and myself went around to Capitol Hill and met with several of the congressional offices. I will say that life is never easy in D.C., but it's on the aviation side of things, we're kind of celebratory mode with the FAA reauthorization bill having been passed. And really the main thing we were asking about, well, one thing we were doing is saying thank you. Thank you for passing a long-term reauthorization bill. Thank you for giving us that stability for the next 5 years. But then working into FY25 appropriation cycle and what are some of the asks that aviation has, specifically what are the asks that the U.S. Contract Tower Program has for the FY25 appropriations process. I came away feeling fairly optimistic that there will be We're not going to get an appropriations bill by October. That's just not doable. But I do think that potentially we could get an appropriations bill between now and when the next Congress gets seated in January, which I think would help a lot of people. Helps our defense, helps our infrastructure projects. Those CRs really continually grind at our programs and being able to delay when we can bid projects and get grant funds out the door from the federal perspective. So all in all, it was a great trip to our nation's capital. And it's been a busy month and a half. So I'll stand for any questions or comments you might have. Thank you all.
How many contract towers do we have in the state?
So the technical number is 6 contract towers. That would be Lawton Fort Sill, Ardmore, Westheimer, Wiley Post, Enid, and Stillwater. So those 6 are paid for by the contract tower program. There's 3 FAA towers in the state: Will Rogers, Tulsa National, Tulsa Riverside. However, the contractor that pays for the contractor that operates the 6 contract towers in Oklahoma also operates the tower at Burns Flat. It's not part of the contract tower program, but it is a contract tower paid for out of funds from DOD as part of their joint use agreement. So I say 6, some people say 7. There's 6 official contract towers in the program paid for out of those funds, but there are 7 towers actually staffed by contractors in the state of Oklahoma.
Any further comments, questions? If not, we'll move into item 19, concluding remarks regarding any agenda items. Director, commissioners?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Item number 20, announcement of the next meeting. Our next meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, here on the first floor conference room of the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Any new business? Item number 21? Seeing none? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second. Very good. We are adjourned.